Welcome back, everybody, to the Westlake Hornets Teambuilder Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. Today, we continue our long-term simulation with the Westlake Hornets. Last episode, we went through season number 17, and today we're going to go through the entire offseason, the preseason, and the full season 18. So this past season, we were a very good team. We ended up going 11-3, winning the Alamo Bowl. All three of our losses ended up being very close, and we had a legitimate shot to make the national championship with how chaotic college football has been this season. And had we not choked a big lead in the Pac-12 championship against USC, we would have likely made the national championship and played Army, who ended up beating Vanderbilt. Pretty wild that a two-loss team ended up winning the national championship, but that's how crazy this season was. I did show the stats in the last episode, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about them here, but if you do want a refresher, these were the team's stats from last season. And yeah, a lot of numbers really pop out at you. This does not feel like an 11-3 team, but I think the issue is that we did not play in a lot of close games, and when we did, we didn't really know how to handle ourselves. I think that's why we ended up losing some of those tight battles, which ended up really killing our hopes at winning a fourth straight national title game. Let's jump right into the offseason now, and this is a really big offseason for us because we do have a very large senior class and a lot of key players who we are going to be losing. Luckily, we do not have to replace our coordinators. Both Bill Clark and Brent Brennan signed extensions, so that's good. We do need some continuity with all the players we are losing, and we will get some. On to the players leaving stage. These players will be inserted into the first draft class of the Madden 22 franchise, along with the players who graduated last year. So, two graduating classes in one Madden draft class. And as you can see, unlike last year, we have a lot of guys declaring and a lot of seniors leaving. Michael Hopkins is one of those guys declaring, a talented redshirt junior corner. I didn't really ever figure out how to properly use him, so I don't really know what his NFL career is going to look like, but he's a talented player, and I'm pretty excited for him. Vlad Van Vektor had a great season in his first year as a starter. He's going to take advantage and enter the NFL. And then we have the two guys projected to go in the 7th round in Chet Kucharski, Avery Horn, and Justin Bennett. Horn is a big loss since he is a starter, and Chet Kucharski is a pretty versatile player too. John Jude, a guard, wants to transfer. I don't really have a spot for him, so that's totally fine. And then we have a lot of guys going in the first round of this year's class, including running back Matt Miller, who I think you could make the argument that he might be the third greatest Westlake running back of all time. Obviously, Alex Ellis and Isaiah Sparks are at the top in some order. They're the two greatest players in school history. But after those two, you can make the case for the next greatest running back is Matt Miller. Now, he could be overtaken by Tazwell Hubbard next year based on how Hubbard performs as a senior. But Matt Miller had an awesome career, and he is well-deserved in being a first-round pick. Russell Ingram Jr. was a very unique player. He had a unique career. Wasn't always the most consistent, but he has all the talent in the world. John Thompson, quality 4-year starter. He improved every season. Cornerback Justin Graves. We've gone through the ups and downs with Graves, but again, he's another really talented player. He had an awesome senior season. I guess he's a player who did better in the sim rather than in actual games I played. And talent-wise, again, he's deserving of being a first-round pick. We don't really use our tight ends a lot, whether that's in the seasons I played or in the sim, but I think the most talented tight end we've had in school history is easily Lamar Gallagher, who will also be a first-round pick. I imagine he leads tight ends in catches, yards, and maybe touchdowns in school history, which just goes to show how little we use them. Brandon Ralph is going to be a first-rounder. He had a really solid career, a very solid nickel corner, kind of like a John Paul Patterson type player, and John Paul Patterson's had a great start to his NFL career with the Jets. Florentino Phoenix is going to be a first-rounder. He was a very quality starter for 3 years. Josiah Mendez, who was only a 1-year starter, but had a great senior season, he's going in the first round. Elton Smith not being a first-rounder kind of surprises me. You could make an argument might be the greatest offensive lineman in school history, if not definitely one of. I think he should be a first-rounder. Kadarius Franklin goes undrafted. That doesn't really surprise me. This game discriminates against short people, so I'm not overly shocked by that. And then Cornelius Kelly, he's not all that special. One of the players who is declaring on another team who is interesting is former Westlake Hornet Jake Grover. Grover was never always consistent with LSU. He had a hard time staying on the field with durability issues, but he's going to be a late-round pick, and I think someone's going to want to take a flyer on his physical upside. So everybody went in the rounds they were projected to. We ended up finishing with 8, yes, 8 first-round picks, which has to be a record for the most first-round picks by a single school in a single season, I would think. For transfer requests, we have nobody. Wow! Hashtag shocker. Now on to recruiting. We had a really good season recruiting-wise, but there are still a lot of really good players still on the board who I would love to get. This past season, I did not spend as much time on recruiting, considering, well, we went through the season in one episode. But despite that, we have one of our most talented recruiting classes in a while, and there are a lot of really, really good players here who I think will be able to make an early impact, possibly as soon as this season. So I had to make some tough decisions with how we're going to use these 15,000 points. 5,000 will go into Brandon Burke, 3,800 will go into Roger Collier, 4,200 will go into Tyler Weber, and 2,000 into Derek Davis. There were a lot of good players like Michael McCollum, Josh Landry, and Randall Gray, who I had a tough time not giving points to, but I wanted to prioritize guys who I thought we would end up getting easier, and we end up going 4 for 4. Roger Collier, Tyler Weber, Brandon Burke, and Derek Davis have all committed to the team. So in the 2 off seasons we've done in the long-term sim, we've gotten exactly who we've targeted in recruiting. So this is a major success. We end up with 22 players on scholarship and easily the top-ranked recruiting class in the entire nation. We had a big offseason and a big regular season for recruiting, and these guys are all going to be really good. I think even if we did not get any of the players we were targeting this offseason, we still could have finished with the top recruiting class. That's how good this class is, and those players we added in the offseason were pretty much some icing on the cake. Going into position changes now, there are a few things I would like to switch around. Some minor changes here on the offensive line. Tyler Weber is going to move from right tackle over to left tackle. Not a big deal, but our left tackle is a little bit older, and I want him to be the replacement. James Jackson is going to move to left end. Jacob Williams is going to move to right end. Again, not a big deal, but something small. We have 5 athletes in this year's class. Frank Bryant will be a running back. Leonard King will go to defensive tackle. Gabriel Young will play quarterback. Brandon Burke was a tough one. I ended up putting him at defensive end. Then Abdul Andrews will end up playing center. Now on to training results, one of the funnest parts of the offseason. Last year we had like 5 players end up being a 99. This year we unfortunately only have 2, but still we have a lot of very highly rated players. One of those 99s is running back Tazwell Hubbard in a very deep backfield. The other 99 is Isaiah Thomas III, who was only a junior. Anthony Cortez, I believe, is a 96 entering his senior season, and he has a lot of high-level skill position players at his disposal. We do have some players to replace on the offensive line, but we have a lot of young talent there. The defense is looking strong as well. We did lose some key pieces in the secondary, like Brandon Ralph, Justin Graves, and Florentino Phoenix. But for the most part, the front 7 is going to be back, other than like Russell Ingram Jr., I think. The least fun part of the offseason is when we have to cut players. Last year I had a really tough time. This year it was not as bad. We only have to cut 6 players, mainly because we had so many players declared for the draft. So I'm finally going to cut Jake Grover. He hasn't technically been on the roster for a few years, but now we have enough quarterbacks to actually release him. We're going to cut a few walk-ons as well, players who I don't really see much of a future for going forward. Lance Lewis was a player who I was surprised to cut, but I didn't realize he was a bust. I never actually scouted him, so seeing that he is a 68, I don't really see much of the future for him. And we're also going to cut kicker Robert Watson because we actually have a kicker now. So we ended up keeping an extra roster spot, so now we have 69 players. Nice. And that'll bring us to the preseason. We'll start the season ranked as the number 3 team in the nation. We're going to be redshirting all of our true freshmen except for Ben Jones, who will be the kicker, and Fred Campbell, the number 1 offensive guard in the nation. He will be starting for us at left guard with the loss of Avery Horn. So here is a look at the depth chart. Not really a whole lot to talk about. There are a few new starters, but for the most part, I think the team looks fairly similar. This upcoming senior class is a very big one as well, headlined by Anthony Cortez, Tazwell Hubbard, and others. So I think next year is really the first year where the team is going to look super different in comparison to the last full season. We played other guys like Jabari Achabe, Lou Burtz-Roy as well. They are seniors too. So next year is going to be really weird, and it's going to look like a totally different squad. For the schedule, I decided to choose Utah State, Vanderbilt, NC State, and Louisville as our non-conference. Notable games there are NC State, so we can play Jill Kilpatrick again. He is now a senior. And then Vanderbilt. They just made the national title game last year. I want to see if they're legit or if they are a one-year wonder. On to recruiting now, and unfortunately, at first, I wasn't really impressed with this recruiting class. There weren't a ton of 5-stars who were interested in us, and the guys who did want to come here are at positions we don't really need, like tight end and running back. But the more I dug through it, there were a lot of really enticing players in this class. The number one quarterback really wants to come here, Carlos Fuller. With Greg Waters key on the team, we don't really need a quarterback, but hey, I figured I'd put him on the board. So we're going to offer some scholarships here to get some insta-commits, and we would get our first 2. Jesse Hayward and George Wilson, both 5-stars, would end up committing to the squad. We also get a really good athlete in Anthony Reynolds. We're getting really lucky with these insta-commits so far. Now we're going on a little bit of a cold streak, but we do get wide receiver Andre Jones and Ryan Johnson. We have been very lucky with the insta-commits so far. Usually it's not this easy. How about Mark King? We do not, unfortunately, get him. There aren't as many players who are interested in us on defense, but we do get a couple outside linebackers in Alex Brown and Jesse Riley. Cornerback Leon Adams ends up committing. So we got, again, super lucky with the insta-commits here. That would be it for this cycle. So I believe we ended up with, I think, 8 of the 19 players we offered scholarships to ending up committing right on this first cycle. I'm pretty sure it was a 20% chance of players insta-committing. It ended up being a lot more than 20%. That's more like 40%. This is how I will be allocating the recruiting points for week 1. We're now going to simulate up to the midseason mark. Unless there's any funny business, I will see you after the Arizona State game. And sure enough, we ended up going 6-0. We're still number 3, though. Last season and this season are totally different. Last year, everybody at the top was losing to where there are 2-win teams winning the national title game. But currently this season, we have 6 undefeated teams at the top. We have stayed at number 3. We have not gone up or down. We're not beating teams as much as we did last year. Particularly, the defense has gotten a little bit worse, at least when it comes to points allowed. But we are still having a really good season. The offense has still been great. We have been playing a lot of bad teams, though. We have not played anybody above 500, and our final 6 games are against teams who are all 500 or better. I do want to point out that Anthony Cortez is currently in the Heisman watch. He's actually the only quarterback in there. He's had a really good season so far for us, 12 touchdowns to 1 interceptions. He didn't really play our first game against Utah State. I think he got hurt. Greg Waters Key came in and he ended up throwing like 4 touchdowns. But other than that, AC3's been really good. I'm a little bit concerned about the run game, and it's not that we're running the ball poorly, but why does Foyet Akibola have more touches than Tazwell Hubbard? I set up the formation subs to where Hubbard would be the main guy, and then Foyet Akibola, Adam Rutledge, and Malik Bostic II would all get carries. Akibola has more than Hubbard, and Malik Bostic II does not have any yet this year. So clearly my formation subs are not working at all. We do have some more commits, though. Recruiting has been a major success, and I went after a few low lock guys, including the #1 player in the entire country, athlete Dante Hodges, who did not have a lot of teams interested. We eventually took the lead, and we got him as an insta-commit. I don't think Hodges truly is the best player in the nation because he seems pretty limited in what he can play. He can't really play defense. I don't think he's fast enough to be a running back or a receiver, so I think he's limited to playing quarterback. And with Greg Waters Key and Gabriel Young, we don't really need a quarterback. But I figured if you can get the #1 athlete in the country, you're going to take that opportunity and run with it. We're going to simulate another 3 weeks into the season. We have a tough stretch here against Utah, Oregon, and Washington, and we would go undefeated in that span, and we are now the #1 team in the nation. Virginia Tech ended up losing earlier in the season, and we actually jumped Cal. Alabama also lost, and now there are only 4 undefeated teams at the top, with us, Cal, Illinois, and Oklahoma. In those 3 games, we beat Utah and Oregon pretty convincingly, and we barely beat Washington, only by 2. We lost to Washington last year, so it's nice to get revenge on them. We're going to simulate now through the rest of the regular season, getting by Louisville, BYU, and Boise State. AC3, by the way, is still 3rd on the Heisman watch, and again, he's the only quarterback there, so technically he's been the best quarterback in college football this season. Going into the Pac-12 championship, I would love to have an opportunity to play Cal, so I ended up simulating to the Boise State week. We're now 11-0. But look at this. All of our recruiting targets locked us out. That's a little bit weird because it's not like we were struggling in those battles. I think we were winning on a couple of those guys, and at first I was very confused. Why are these players locking us out? But then I thought about it, and I noticed we've already gotten 25 players in this recruiting class, so I'm kind of thinking maybe there's like a limit. Like the game sets it at 25. I've never seen a team get more than 25 commits. So is that it? I've had this game for nearly 8 years. I never knew there was a limit of how many players you could end up getting in recruiting. The more you know, I guess. We recruited too well this season. So we ended up beating Boise State. We're now 12-0. We're the #1 team in the nation. And look who is still at number 2. It's Cal. So the top 2 teams in the nation will be playing in the Pac-12 championship. The winner will advance to the Natty. Oklahoma is still undefeated. They're 12-0, so if they win their conference championship, they're probably going to make it. AC3 is 4th on the Heisman watch. It does not look like he will end up winning the award, unfortunately, but it's been good having him in the running this whole season. So here we go, the most important game maybe of this long-term simulation yet. A national championship preview, if you will, with the 2 best teams in college football, #1 Westlake, #2 Cal, at the Hornets' nest in the snow. I decided to simcast this game. I'm not going to play it unless it gets really close at the end. I didn't hop in at the end of the USC game, and I kind of regret that because I think we could have won last year in the Pac-12 championship. We could have made the national title game, and we could be talking about the possibility of Westlake winning 5 straight national titles had that been the case. But we have to start a new streak here, and we can get back to the national championship if we win this one tonight. Isaiah Thomas III and Jason Wilson appear to be the team captains. That's pretty cool. I think they're both technically juniors still, but good to see them stepping up as leaders on this young squad. We're going to simulate quarter by quarter. I'm keeping it at 10 minutes for now. That might be too many. As you can see, we get some quick points. Cal marching on the doorstep, and they tie us up. Then we would get a long touchdown, so we're now up 14-7. Cal marching on the doorstep of the end zone as we near the end of the first quarter. It seems like both offenses are playing really well as Cal quickly scores and they add a field goal. Doesn't really seem like either defense is really trying. The Golden Bears add another touchdown, 17 unanswered points for Cal, but we do get a last-second score before the first half, and so does Cal. So it's 31-21 at halftime. I don't know if we've allowed 31 points all season, and we did that in one half. We would then score, force a turnover, and score again, so we would now take the lead. A really solid third quarter for our Hornets. We started it down by 10. We are now up by 1. In the fourth quarter of last year's Pac-12 title game, we were up by 3 scores and blow it. So this year, we can't really blow as big of a lead as we would score a touchdown. Cal gets it, but then misses a 2-point conversion. So now we're up by 2, pretty much going back and forth, and that's your ball game. The Westlake Hornets have won the Pac-12 championship in dramatic fashion, 42-40, thanks to a missed 2-point conversion with probably like 5 or 6 minutes left in the game, and neither offense was able to score after that. So we were able to clutch it out. We beat number 2 Cal, so now pending something drastic, we will be in the national title game, and if Oklahoma wins their conference championship, it'll probably be against them. AC3 had a really good game. Look at the running stats. So there's no Tazwell Hubbard here. Foyet Akibola got all the carries. Let me explain. It's not like Tazwell Hubbard was hurt or anything, but what I did was I made Foyet Akibola the starting running back because I noticed whoever I put as the second string running back got the most touches. However, as I enter a game, I think simulating in-game and simulating through the sim is a lot different. I don't know if that makes sense. But long story short, I think the formation subs only carry into an actual game. And that's why he got all the carries, which really kind of infuriates me. But at the end of the day, we won. So I can't really get too upset. But it is a little bit annoying that Tazwell Hubbard didn't even play. So let's now simulate to the national title game. Since we will simcast this game, now I know to actually do my formation subs to make sure Tazwell Hubbard gets a bulk of the carries and make sure the other guys still get an opportunity as well, but make sure Tazwell Hubbard is the main man in charge. Despite his very impressive Pac-12 championship performance, Anthony Cortez's status on the Heisman watch does not change as he finishes in 4th. The only quarterback to go in the top 5, Alabama's Stephen Williams, ends up winning the Heisman. Their backup running back also finished in the top 5. We did get a few award winners. Jacob Williams won the Lombardi. Tate Sullivan won the Ray Guy Award. That's, I think, our first Ray Guy Award winner ever. And there we go. We are going to be playing Oklahoma in the national title game. They're only a B+, but despite that, Kirk does think they're going to win. This Oklahoma roster is honestly a lot weaker than I expected. Their starting quarterback is Tom Thomas. Wow, that's really creative parenting. They also have Maurice Sullivan, who we went after in recruiting a few years ago. He's the backup. Their starting running back is Jim Glover, who's only an 84. This roster really does not impress me that much. I think Oklahoma has had better teams in the past. They had the Heisman winning running back last year who was like a 99. Now their run game is worse. I don't really know how they made it. So as I said, I did change the formation sub. So Tazwell Hubbard is now the starting running back. He's going to get most of the touches, but we will get to see the other guys sprinkled in there. As you can see, we are ranked among the top 18 in every major statistical category, but Oklahoma is also ranked very highly, so maybe I'm underrating them, even though on paper they don't have an elite roster. Maybe this is just a great team who has great coaching and has used some of their veteran leaders to help them make the big game. On paper, we are certainly the better team, and I think we are the favored team, especially with how well this team has performed this year with an elite senior quarterback and Anthony Cortez, who has now started in 3 national title games. I think AC3 has the chance to be the first Westlake quarterback ever to start and finish multiple national championship victories. If you remember, he did not finish out the game when he was a freshman because he got hurt, but he did as a sophomore, and now he has the chance to do so as a senior. Every great Westlake quarterback has only won 1 national title game. Peyton Curtis, Keith Fleming, Stephen Westwood. Champ Britton didn't win any, but that was because of that choke against Penn State. I'm sorry in advance if the gameplay looks a little bit wonky. I'm still getting used to the capture card. I'm still playing around with all of the settings. I tried to improve the video quality. Maybe my computer can't really handle that. But the whole point of using the capture card now, as I said in the last episode, is to try to experiment with it just so I know how to use it for the next NCAA series. All right, back to the game. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of trouble on this drive. This Denard Wilson sacks AC3, and it's now 3rd and 14. We want to set the tone early. We want to start this game off with some quick points. Oklahoma does have a great offense, so that is in jeopardy here. And sure enough, on 3rd down, we would not complete the pass. The throw for IT3 is broken up by Eddie Wilkinson. So normally I would punt it here, but I said screw it. We're kind of in no man's land. Why not risk it for the biscuit and start this national championship game off with a bang? Cortez looking to throw it. He connects with Tyler, who does get the first down. I was a little bit worried for a second that he was going to cross the first down marker and stay behind it, but he does use his quick speed to convert. So after that big play by the Westlake offense, they will keep the drive going. A major momentum killer for Oklahoma's defense, who really looked like they've got to stop. Tazwell Hubbard on the very next play gets around 12 yards in his final collegiate game. Who is the better Westlake running back of all time, Tazwell Hubbard or Matt Miller? Let me know in the comments because I think it's pretty close. 1st and 10 now, fake handoff for Hubbard. AC3 scrambling with it, and he finds a wide open Tommy Taco in the end zone for a touchdown. Former top running back recruit converted over to tight end. Tommy Taco with a great play, able to keep both feet in bounds. A great throw from Anthony Cortez III in his final game as a Westlake Hornet. And now we'll get to see what the defense looks like. The best player on this defense appears to be Jacob Williams, a former walk-on turned superstar. Here is Jim Glover on the first offensive play for the Sooners. He gets around 14. Maybe I disrespected him. He's only an 84 overall. He wouldn't get any playing time in our backfield. But maybe he's better than I'm giving him credit for. Or maybe not. He loses about 9 on that play. They're going to credit the tackle to Randy Powell, who sort of takes over that John Paul Patterson, Jeremy Harrington, Brandon Routh role as the white slot corner who does a little bit of everything. 3rd and 17 now. Thomas nearly sacked by Achebe. He is going to be brought down. However, it's actually going to be by the defensive tackle, Derek Berg, who has had to step up with Vlad Van Vektor leaving school a season or 2 earlier than expected. So we end up getting the stop, and now we're going to simulate the rest of this game. Hopefully we can beat them. Currently up 7-0. We would add some more points to take a 14-0 lead. Really a solid first quarter. Although the Sooners are marching on the doorstep, they would only kick a field goal even though they reached the goal line. We would march down the field at another touchdown. It's now 21-3, and it's really not looking good for Oklahoma. Trying to add some last-second points, and we do. It is 28-3 at halftime. 28-3 leads have been blown in championship games before, and we do have a history of choking big-time leads in the national title game, but this would be very unprecedented, and it looks like we're going to be fine. Oklahoma's made up a little bit of ground here in the third quarter. We did not add any points, but the Sooners only added 2 field goals, and we're up by 19. As long as we can just play smart football, I think we'll be fine. I'm only going to simulate possession by possession now. I wanted to hop in towards the end of the game, whether it's close or not, because I do want to play the final snaps if we're about to win the national title game, or if it's close, which I guess it won't. But if it would have been close, I would have liked to step in. But if that's not going to be an issue, we are up 35-9, chewing some clock. We would add a touchdown, and it is now 42-9. An absolute blowout. Pretty much every national title game we've been in has been close, but this one is not the case. This is the first blowout national title game really in school history. So I noticed the game put the backups in on defense, which is smart, but I wanted to play with the starters because it's the final drives for some of these seniors, guys like Jabari Achabe, Jacob Williams, Lou Burks-Roy. Wanted to use them for one last time. 3rd and 10, Tom Thomas with a deep shot downfield. It's broken up by Joko Nwosu and Khalil Onobanjo. So the defense gets a stop, and now the offense is going to come out. Here is Anthony Cortez III for one final kneel down, and that will do it. National championship number 6 for Westlake. The Hornets are now 6-2 all-time in national title games. That's 6 national championships in the past, 9 years, I guess? So a really great win here for our program. And as I said, the first 8 national championships we played in were all super close. We never really have had a blowout, but this year we completely just clobbered them, really from start to finish. Anthony Cortez had a great final game. He ran it 23 times. Hubbard only ran it 6 times. That disappoints me. Tazwell Hubbard didn't have a bad season. I think he ran for over 1,000 yards. He was really good, but I feel like he could have gotten the ball more. I think he is the best player on the team, at least talent-wise. So I was a little bit disappointed to see that his role was not really what I had hoped for. But it is all worth it at the end because we do go undefeated and we do win the national title. So I really can't complain, right? As we take a look at the stats, I'm about to make a statement that I think is really going to surprise some people. But if you think about it, it's kind of true. Anthony Cortez III is the greatest quarterback in Westlake history. There. I said it. He was not as statistically dominant as guys like Champ Britt or Peyton Curtis, but AC3 is the first Westlake quarterback to ever finish in the Heisman candidacy. I think he had the greatest single season that a Westlake quarterback has ever had, and he has been the starter on 3 national championship teams. Here's a final look at Tazwell Hubbard's career stats. Again, do you think he's better than Matt Miller? I think they're pretty close. I would personally give the edge to Tazwell Hubbard. I thought he was a little bit more consistent, but I would understand the argument for Matt Miller because both of them are super extraordinary players, and they're both going to be stars in the NFL. Looking at the rest of the stats, the offensive line was great. The defense was great. Our leading sack getter only had 5.5, and that was Jacob Williams, but he also finished with 22 tackles for loss. This was a walk-on reminder. I think it goes without saying that Jacob Williams is easily the best walk-on in school history because we really haven't had any other good ones, not including the guys who are on the OG roster like Cortez Thorne, Malik Bostic the first. But of walk-ons who have actually been recruited, I think he's the best one. Tate Sullivan also is the first punter to win the Ray Guy Award, so does that make him the greatest punter in Westlake history? I know there isn't really much competition there. AC3 did not win any awards. He didn't even win the Davey O'Brien Award, which is for best quarterback, and he was the only quarterback who was in the running for any Heisman Trophy or whatever. We did have Jacob Williams and Tate Sullivan take home awards, but it seemed like last year we had a lot more award winners, which is odd considering that team lost 3 games. And I think actually if you look at the stats, I think there's an argument that we were a better team last year. We just had a lot of trouble closing out close games. But this year, we did close out close games, and that's why we ended up winning the national title. I think this was the best team in the country, but I think there's a fair argument that last year's team might have been a little bit more dominant than this year's. This year's, again, just knew how to win tight matchups. I was surprised to see Ben Jones in the top 10 for kickers. I thought he didn't have that great of the season, but oh well, I guess he will be the kicker, really, for the rest of the series. We did have more All-Americans than anybody in the nation. Jacob Williams, Slavko Savic, Derek Berg, Khalil Onabanjo, and Tate Sullivan make the first team. On the second team, we have AC3, Antonio Osborne, Marcus Crum, Lou Burt's Roy, Gordon Waters Key, and Jason Wilson. And then on the all-freshman team, we have Thread Campbell, and I believe that was it. No, we also had Brant Hollins, but he wasn't a starter, so I don't really know how he made it. On the all-Pac-12 teams, we have AC3, Hubbard, Damian Purcell, Osborne, and then all of those players. I'm not going to read them all because there's a lot. And then here is the second team. We have a lot more guys as well on both sides of the ball. So that's going to end today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Westlake adds another national championship to the mantle. Next episode, we're going to go over all of season 19. So I hope you're all excited for that. Peace out.